Hello, everyone. This is the meeting of the Ethereum Cabal and all who are included in the secret rituals. We now are live streaming that as we have for the past 2 years. Um, let's go ahead and get to the agenda. Is anyone here who can kind of discuss testing? I think Martin, maybe?
Um, yeah, so testing, I can't really, I don't know exactly the manual test, but the fast testing has continued and it's become a lot more stable. So right now we have two machines up with different fuzzing strategies. Uh, and it's doing it's done 5 million test cases since, what is it, 25th of October. It's ticking along, and on two machines as well. So it's maybe 6 or so million test cases the last 12 or 13 days. It has found one issue, one consensus issue in some client. Which is being fixed. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, great. Yeah, pardon the dog in the background if y'all can hear that. I'm at a friend's house that has dogs. Um, so let's see what's next on the agenda. Did I close out of it? No, I'm here. Um, so next up we have the client updates. So we'll start with parity if Ofri or Fred want to jump in.
Sure. We forked Kovan to the latest changes and seems to be working. We got on that issue that was reported during DevCon on block propagation. We're working on it. We're also talking to the White Block, I believe their name is, the simulation tool, to try to see if we can get some simulations on what changing this means. But yeah, looking to get out to fix it. Otherwise, no major updates.
Okay. Geth?
Hey, so I guess we're basically in the same boat. We just have a whole lot of pull requests piled up during DEF CON and the previous weeks, but everybody was preparing, so we're just kind of crunching through those. Nothing spectacular.
Okay. Do we have anyone from Ethereum J here?
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, Mikhail, hey.
Yeah, nothing special here as well. Preparing a release with the fixes for issues that have been discovered during Robson hard fork. Yep, and continuing to work on the ETH 2.0 implementation. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. And Peter, could you mute?
Oh yeah, sorry.
No problem. C plus or Aleth?
They're slowly preparing version 1.5, which will have all the Constantinople features. And besides that, uh, EVMC point 6 version 6 will released, so it's kind of on the side. I think that's all.
Okay. Um, Ethereum JS?
Yes, it's me.
Yep.
Hi. Yeah, we made good progress on Constantinople. We just merged the Create 2 opcode, and now it's just Xcode, which has been open, and we're just waiting for the tests. And I think the test just got merged today in Ethereum/tests, or at least some. So I'm confident that we can do a release in 1 or 2 weeks on Constantinople.
Great. That sounds awesome. Next, we'll do Nimbus.
Like everyone, no real updates. Just clearing out DEF CON stuff.
Yeah, I think we're all recovering. TurboGeth?
Hi. So yes, I've been recovering, but also I've started working on that issue. They had a bug that I discovered during the Ropsten hard fork. It was something to do with rewinding. And apart from that, I've been working on these the Morris database that I've announced at DEF CON 4. And also I started to try to extract some data sets, which I will talk about maybe in the next meeting or something, which is trying my hand at using the efficiency of TurboGuess in extracting all different type of data from the database, which is so far we're looking pretty good. So yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Pantheon?
Yeah, we just had a offsite all week in Prague. I'm actually in the airport right now. We shipped our Pantheon release, and it is available on GitHub. Pegasus Eng, Pegasus with the YENG/Pantheon. So the pull requests are open and the issue queues are open, and we also have.
Oh, you just muted, Dano. Hello, Dano?
Okay, I can't press space when I'm on the other page on my Mac. So we're going to be contributing some reference tests back. They're probably going to be working on the EXT
You got muted again?
EXT code hash.
There
Yeah,
you go.
I can't keep the spacebar pressed and switch between pages. But we're going back to the EXT code hash. We're going to contribute back to some of those reference tests. So that's the update.
Awesome. Let's see, Trinity?
Roughly the same. We are, I believe, entirely, in theory, Constantinople ready, but we still have to get all of the Ethereum tests passing. I think we still have a few failures there, so working on that.
Okay.
Can I add a small thing?
Sure.
I just realized. So we're shipping an alpha. It's just an alpha. It's just for testnet like client wallet today. So if people want to be on the bleeding edge and try some stuff out and see if they can break it, check out Feather. If you just Google parody Feather, I'm sure it shows up.
Great. Who am I missing? I think I got most people. Which client am I missing? Okay, I think I got everyone then. That's good. So next we have research updates. I don't know if anyone from the research team is on actually. So we might skip that. Anyone here who can represent research or any part of it?
Obviously not speaking for research, but Hudson, do you want to do EWASM as well? I still don't know
Yeah.
whether we fall under clients or research.
I put it under research just cause.
Okay, so I guess we don't have anyone from research then, right?
Yeah, go ahead with EWASM.
Cool. Yeah, so we publicly launched our testnet at DevCon, which we're pretty excited about. So that's live now. If you plug in ewasm.ethereum.org with, I think, the regular RPC port, which is 8545 into like MetaMask, RPC, etc., that's running. That's only on Geth right now. There's still a few outstanding changes that are pending, I think, updates to EVMC, etc. So I think we still need to publish the latest Genesis data into our like public repo or whatever to make it easier for other people to add nodes. And we'll keep publishing updates into gitter.im/ewasm/lobby. And I guess the other big thing is we're still working on some like outstanding design questions, like a big interesting one, for example, is like static and dynamic linking. Like how do you link multiple EWASM contracts to each other? And I guess that's with an eye towards hopefully maybe having EWASM on the mainnet sometime in 2019, although that path is still not too super clear. I think Jared, oh, he was here. I don't see him now. I was going to ask if he had anything to add. Pavel, do you have anything to add?
Oh, I think Paul doesn't have audio anymore. Looks like it dropped off. Oh,
Cool.
okay.
Okay, well, that's it for me. Thanks,
Okay,
Hudson.
sounds good. All right, next up we have Constantinople. We have a few things um, about this. Before we do that, let's talk about the Goerli POA testnet, because that might be somewhat included in the discussion about Constantinople, whether or not we're going to use that as one of the testnets that we can test Constantinople on. So, Offrey, if you can kind of just give an overview of Goerli and also tell me how to pronounce it correctly, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So Goerli was born at the East Berlin Hackathon as an idea, and initially we wanted to have like a cross proof of authority, cross client proof of authority network. Yeah, and now with the current status is that we have two people that stepped up to implement the Click proof of authority engine to parity. And also with last week's open source release of Pegasus, we have like, let's say 2.5 clients that support Click. And I had the idea when I came back from DevCon that I just restart the Goerli testnet. Goerli, that's how you pronounce it. With Pantheon and a guest validator that worked out pretty smooth. And I have to admit, I'm surprised how amazingly simple Click is and just works. And now we are in a stage of a pre-testnet for the Goerli testnet, and I'm basically waiting for the code for parity to be ready. However, parity allows a mode to skip seal validation, and right now it's possible to synchronize the parity chain, the Goerli chain, with the parity client in an insecure way. So far, we have like 2 real validating clients on Goerli and 1 not really validating client. Yeah, the ultimate goal is obviously to have a testnet for all clients. And to answer your initial question for Constantinople, I think Goerli is not ready yet. We are not there yet. And I think Goerli is, regarding the current roadmap, will be probably ready after Constantinople. That's why I'm also activated all Constantinople changes in the Goerli Genesis. So yeah, it's a fully working Constantinople testnet once clients have Click support. Yeah, any questions?
Just to add a bit, I'm not sure whether you saw that currently it seems that Goerli testnet seems to be stuck. I think all clients forked away.
Yeah, I didn't check today, but last time I checked yesterday, we have our first consensus issue. Yay! Yeah, it's a long way to go. I was quite excited to be able to sync like 4,000 blocks with 3 different clients on a POA network. But yeah, we need some work, and yeah.
Yeah, and if you need any help from our part, just shout out.
Yeah, sure.
Question for client developers who would like to add support for that. Where is a good place to start?
Oh, so we have a GitHub landing page. It's Goerli with OE. So the thing is, people complain about this letter with the 2 dots. The O with 2 dots is the German Ö. And if in case you don't have it, or like the computer science representation for that is like OE. So you just type Goerli with OE and go on GitHub Goerli testnet. And we have a Gitter channel with the same gitter.im/Goerli/testnet. And both places are good to get started to contribute. And shout out to all people that are already contributing. It's amazing how many people support this idea and this initiative. Thanks so far.
Yeah, and the Click engine is one of the EAPs. It's if you want to implement that.
Hey, if I can just chime in really quickly. I'm working on the Click implementation for parity. and excuse me. I'm currently technically on vacation, but I'm hoping to make some pretty decent progress over the next few weeks or so. Really excited.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. I'm on vacation too, technically.
Yeah, I think I'm on vacation too. So yeah, we're all on vacation but working.
Why are you people here?
So exciting.
Ethereum doesn't stop, and we have a problem. We can't stop working. Basically, I have a couple questions. So the 2.5 clients that have it working, you said that's Parity, Geth, and Pantheon is the half?
Parity is the half, I think.
Parity is the half.
Ah, I see. Okay. And then the other question is Click the one that Rinkeby is based on?
Yes.
Okay, great. Those are my only two questions. Well, that's exciting. So now we can jump into Constantinople. There were, if you go to the agenda, there were 2 comments in the agenda that kind of suggest certain things. And it looks like there was a suggestion. So Ofri's suggestion was to aim for January 16th, which would be around block 7,083,314 for the hard fork. And that's just putting a number up there for some base discussion. And then Olger has a more, I guess, complete plan that has to do with starting a new proof of work testnet and deprecating Ropsten on December 10th, forking a new testnet on January 16th, and then fork on mainnet February 12th. So that one's a little more spread out. Let's go ahead and go with Olger because it sounds like he's been thinking on this a little bit. Did you want to comment kind of on your plan and what you're thinking on this?
Hi, yeah, I can do some comments, but no, that's not really a plan, and I didn't really take on this. I'm just coming from a software engineering perspective, and from my general intuition, this I think this would be a good plan, but or a bit more conservative plan. But I'm, for example, no one who's set up testnets or something like that, and I can't really judge how much effort it is to have a new testnet. I'm also not a heavy user of the Ropsten testnet, so many open questions there. That was just one suggestion because I thought it would be good to have one alternative to this other suggestion, just to have some discussion ground. But I haven't put very much effort into pushing this further or something.
Got it. Okay. And we had discussed the testnet last meeting, and if I recall, someone correct me if I'm wrong, we kind of said that there is some work to start a new testnet, and we also like the fact that number one, Ropsten is heavily used because that gives us a lot of data and like a lot of scenarios that people are testing to kind of trigger bugs. And then, yeah, that's kind of the two arguments in favor of keeping Ropsten and not starting a new proof of work testnet. Was there any other things, Peter? What were you saying?
So what I wanted to add is that at least coming from the Rinkeby perspective, after we launched Rinkeby, people started to play around with it, but I would say that probably it took at least half a year until Rinkeby actually saw use. I mean, real world, day-to-day use. So if we launch a new testnet before Christmas, I don't really think it will have value because nobody will use it. So there's a huge developer inertia because everything is deployed on Ropsten. All their workflows is set up for Ropsten, and it takes a lot of time to switch over it. So I think it would be valuable to start a new testnet and to just kill Ropsten, but that won't really help us test Constantinople, in my opinion. So that can be used for the next hard fork.
Any other comments on the using a testnet?
Yeah, I agree with Peter. And also, so there's this notion in the comment that there should be at least one successful fork on a shared testnet. I don't understand what is so particular about a successful fork in real time. I don't see any the value in that actually. And if anyone has another opinion, please tell me what is the value of that.
It seems like it broke really quickly after the fork, and so just because of that, wouldn't it make sense to have another fork, or is that more something that always goes pretty smoothly, the transition? It's just if there's a bug, then that's the problem.
Well, that's why you do the dress rehearsals, so make sure that if there's any bugs that we find them. Because imagine if this happened without a test net, we got this breakage real live network. I think we need these dress rehearsals.
But I mean, any client that successfully did the fork, it successfully managed to pass the fork, right? So, so we have tested that.
So you're saying we don't need to test the fork transition part. We just need to do a lot more tests with the fuzzer and other blockchain tests and stuff.
I'm saying we can test the fork transition part easily by just doing a full sync through the fork. I don't see the value of doing it in real time. You know, I don't see the difference between doing it in real time versus doing it on the historical data on the fork that already happened. Any client right now?
Yeah, I mean there is a difference. So it's Alexei here. So the difference is that there are different parts of code that, at least the code that I've looked at, they are being activated during the actual real-time transition and when you just simply sync through the fork. And one of the things, for example, is when you do it live, there's always these ankles, for example, which are coming from the old, like a pre-fork thing, and I'm not sure how much of the problem that is. But also from the other point of view is that if there was so much noise during the fork on Ropsten, we might have not noticed some minor issues that happened, but because we were so overwhelmed with all the big things that are happening, maybe nobody noticed that. And if things were quieter, we might have noticed them. So I think I mean, at least I would feel more comfortable if there was kind of successful fork. For what happened is probably not very successful.
Well, yeah, but essentially Ropsten is already forked, and you won't be able to spin up a new testnet with decent traffic.
Well, yeah, that's why I suggested in the beginning to roll it back, but now it's probably too late. So, but we can still do it on a different one.
Exactly. So if we keep Ropsten for testing the actual transaction and stuff happening on the chain, and if there is a group who actually wants to do a live transition, then we could just spin up. I mean, we can spin up a new testnet, like on
That's
Monday.
correct. Yeah, that's what we should be doing. I mean, until maybe with no usage, but actually just getting through that transition. And then if we cannot notice any issues, then it's good. It's good result.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't even have to be a large coordinated public effort. Really, it just means that we need Ethereum J, TurboGef, I guess, Gef, Parity, and whoever else wants to join in, and we decide we kick it off on like Monday or next Monday. Let it spin for an epoch or two, and then do the transition, and let it spin for another.
That's correct. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I'm on board with that.
And this would be on Ropsten?
No. It's just basically this specially launched network specifically for the transition test, and we can just repeat it. If something doesn't go well, they can just repeat it again, like 1 or 2 weeks later, and repeat until we actually get a smooth transition.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. Anybody have comments on that?
Yeah, one further question on this. So will this be a proof of work mini testnet, and would it make sense to then use this in the first weeks for kind of like Constantinople testing in some semi-public space, and then enlarge this to a new proof of work testnet, or to have these two things combined, or wouldn't this make sense?
No, the idea is just to just throw. It's kind of throwaway chain, to be honest. So.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, if it's a proof of, so it must be a proof of work chain because that's the only thing every client implements. But if we start with a proof of work chain and play around with it, we might as well keep it eventually. So we can keep it or we can throw it away. I don't care
Okay,
either.
we also don't have to make that decision today.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I think that's a good idea. Can we have a group of people who are kind of lead on that? As far as getting that done in the next, well, I guess let's figure out the rest of the timeline, and then we'll figure out the timeline for this new testnet.
Yeah, I can kind of take the lead on that, and I can spin up a couple of machines, and if people contact me and send me their SSH keys, I can spin up some machines for us to use on this.
Awesome, thanks, Martin. As far as timing for the rest of the stuff, as far as so basically, Offrey just kind of threw a date out there, middle of January, January 16th. Olger, in the event that we were to start a whole new testnet, which it sounds like we're only doing from a limited testing perspective and not a widely used testnet, he was saying fork on the 12th. Let's just throw out some dates here. So I guess the facts are we've forked on Ropsten. We had some issues, but ever since those issues have been resolved, we haven't had any major issues on Ropsten with regards to the fork. And we are starting up a new proof of work testnet to test some of the transition that's Martin's leading, and that's going to happen before the end of the year, is the assumption. So what about dates? What about the middle of January? Is that too much time? Is that something where that'll kind of be the holidays are over, and so there'll be a lot more people on here? Um, what's the thoughts here?
Sorry. You'll go ahead, Lane.
Hey, yeah, this may be a good time to just jump in super quickly and discuss the difficulty bomb. Do we have 60 seconds to do that?
Oh yeah, let's do that. I didn't see any that I know that's in here, but I didn't see um that on, oh, that is on the agenda. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Lane. What's up with the
Yeah.
difficulty bomb?
Cool. Yeah. Sorry, I added it to the agenda. It's super quick. So I have spent some time working on this over the past couple weeks with a few other people, Jay Rush, James Hancock, Ed Mazurek, and Casey Ditrio. So we've had quite a few eyes on it. We also discussed it with Vitalik, ran the numbers, did some simulations, and I'm pretty confident that the following is going to happen. The difficulty bomb, we're going to start seeing block times increase in January, early to probably mid-January is when they'll start ticking up into the kind of 15 plus second range. And then we're predicting that we'll hit 30-second block times, which is when the Byzantium hard fork happened last year, in May, early to mid-May. And of course, this depends upon the total network hash power. So if that hash power were to drop by something like 20-25%, then it could happen in as early as kind of early April. So just put things in perspective, we have time, there's no critical concern. But the main point I wanted to make is that it's going to happen faster than last time for a couple of reasons. One is that the overall network hash power is not rising like it was in 2017. It was rising very rapidly while the bomb was sort of ticking, so to speak. And also because the total hash power now is so much higher, the total difficulty rather is so much higher, when the bomb does hit, it will come faster. So last year it was something like 7 or 8 months until we reached 30-second block times. This year it's going to be more like 4 months. So just putting that in people's minds. That's it.
Okay, great. That gives us a little bit of leeway if things go really wrong. That's good. And then Alexi, you had a comment on the timing?
No, I had just something that I think we forgot, which I remember you mentioned that during DEF CON, is that the specification, the yellow paper, jello paper. I saw that the jello paper does contain some of the elements of Constantinople, but I'm not sure if it's been updated for like CRE to extra gas things. So I think we need to kind of get it up to speed, up to date as well.
Yeah, so there was.
I think
Oh, go ahead, Martin.
We have not. Yeah, I was just going to say we have not like officially adopted yellow paper in any way, right? Even though a lot of us are thinking that might be a wise thing to do in the future.
Yeah, we haven't officially done it. There's just been some side conversations at DevCon about it, but we haven't officially adopted it as the main thing anymore. But the argument there is, since Yoichi left the foundation and is no longer involved in Ethereum, that we know of, he's no longer keeping up with the yellow paper, and the jello paper is more up to date and deals with K, which I don't understand all the technical stuff behind it, but basically it's like you can, I guess, generate test off it eventually if you want to do that, and you can it's just a lot more maybe formal, I think is what the word Everett used. So basically we're kind of saying that the jello paper might be a good replacement.
Just to add some comments to that, so the jello paper, when I talked to Everett at DevCon, it is actually more of I mean, it formalizes the EVM execution part. There are lots of parts in the yellow paper which is still very relevant, like block validation, header validation, state transition, and those are kind of big parts that need to be added to the yellow paper.
What's
So
the
we're
so I
quite a bit
missed
away from.
what's the reasoning behind creating something new versus updating the existing yellow paper to include those things?
Yeah, I'm no expert at K. If someone else wants to take a stab at explaining it.
I think the baseline was that, so the problem that people, the community, have been telling us over and over and over again for the past 4 years, maybe even more, is that the yellow paper is extremely dense and it's extremely hard to follow. And the problem is that unless you have fairly, essentially only a handful of people have the experience and knowledge to make any modification to that. So it's I guess it kind of boils down to how many people in the world can properly update it.
So yeah, but there's also another cool thing, which is that this is written in K, which is a language, and from this, so the specification is also an implementation, and you can actually take this specification and subject it to tests and execute the specification and see the results of certain transactions or state transitions or whatever, which is really powerful thing. And then you can do formal verifications of things from the specification.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with all that. It just seems confusing to have two separate efforts in different directions. Like, why not have one thing that has both of them? But I don't have enough background on this, so I'll just. I was just wondering if anyone had like, oh, it was clearly because of this reason, but yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the idea is not to have two separate things. The idea is to completely replace the yellow paper with a descendant. I guess that's the long-term goal.
And additionally, the jello paper, what the goal of it would be to add things that the yellow paper doesn't have and take out things that the yellow paper had but are no longer applicable because they change so quickly or so often. So it would basically be a whole new. So it would have the goal of the yellow paper, which is to have a common specification that clients can follow, but have it be more modern and have it be up to date with the current standards. Would be the overarching goal. Fred.
All right.
So I was following one client team that built an Ethereum client from scratch, and what they did. So, and this is the downside of the yellow paper, is they had to basically compile different versions of the paper to implement an Ethereum client, because you have like a frontier version of the yellow paper, then you have like a homestead version, then a Byzantium version, now a Constantinople. So I think a pro for the yellow paper is that it's human readable, but the con is like we have no proper versioning on it.
Yes, and I just had a quick glance at Jello paper like for last 2 days, and I did see that it has elements for all these forks, like gas schedules and stuff. It's all in there. So that might be a solution to that.
So it sounds like we're kind of getting to the point where we're fine with replacing the yellow paper. I haven't heard anyone in favor of keeping it, honestly. Is there anyone in here who is in favor of keeping the yellow paper as far as the common spec?
Well, I would say let's see where the Jello paper gets us, and let's wait until it's actually in a usable state and decide afterwards.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a really good idea.
I think there's definitely value to have both. Like, on one hand, you do want a mathematical spec that someone can look at and verify and review. And on the other hand, you want something for implementers to be able to quickly create code from. And one is not necessarily suitable for the other. So I think there's value in having two.
I think the Jello paper checks both of those boxes, but I wouldn't stake my reputation on it.
And I also wanted to say that I think I don't know who's actually working on Jello paper, but I assume at the moment there's nobody. So it has been kind of suggested as the specification, but I don't know. Do we know who's actually working on this? Because we can't simply wait and for it to to fix itself, right?
Are you talking about the yellow paper or the Jello paper?
Jello paper.
I
know that nobody.
Oh, go ahead.
I know that nobody's working on yellow paper, but is anybody actually progressing with the Jello paper?
Yes. Everett told me that they are going to have someone dedicated from runtime verification to update it, and that they're going to start joining the all core dev calls. I think they're off this week, but
Yes, and additionally, they plan to actually build an Ethereum client. Well, there is actually an implementation of an Ethereum client which uses the K engine, and put that through the Hive tests and put it through the libfuzzer stuff, and actually basically fuzz the specification. So they have plans for it, and they're maintaining it.
Okay, very cool.
Great. So we don't need to decide on this today at all, but we'll see what happens when the Jello paper's updated. We'll start getting runtime verification in the calls and go from there. So back to the hard fork timing. Do people have opinions on that? Otherwise, I can just say what I'm thinking. Who wants to throw out dates or I guess, yeah, dates.
So this is like 4 days before the ETH Denver conference. It might be better if we launched it a couple of weeks before in case things go poorly.
Which date are you talking about? February?
Yes.
Yeah, I would rather aim for mid-January actually, assuming we don't find another consensus issue. Full disclosure: the last consensus issue was found 16 days ago, but since then nothing has been found.
All right, quick check here. So there's been some proposal to move things out, but our original plan was forking mid-January. Do we have anybody on the call who is who's the advocate for moving things out past January?
Yeah, I had a short suggestion of setting up a new testnet, but we went through this, and I think with this new plan of having just a small fork dedicated testnet, it makes very much sense to keep the January date. So I would drop this February suggestion.
Well, does anybody else want to speak up for moving it? Otherwise, it seems like our default action here should be to retain our existing, or like our previous plan of forking in mid-January.
Mid-January seems fine.
It seems fine to me if we get tests ready like a month before that date.
According to Dimitri, I think we're on track to get it ready at least a month before, and I think most of them are done, is what he said. He said he only had a few weeks to go to finish the rest of them when we had our last call about a month ago. So I don't know if he was able to, but yeah.
Yeah, I can actually. Yeah, sorry. I can say something about it because I just have taken on some additional responsibilities to also work on the tests repository and doing some additional coordination there, and then help Dimitri a bit with all the other stuff, non-implementation specific. Yeah, and actually today Dimitri merged the Xcode or initial Xcode tests, and other tests are now in the work from Adrian from Pantheon has joined for helping out, and Hugo from eWasm. And I think we're on a very well track to get these tests done. We also just one other thing we changed is that we now introduced the releases for the tests. So we started with the version 6.0 beta 1, and so that clients can actually synchronize their testing efforts, and we can compare better the different test results. And I think we should go to a kind of like main release or like 6.0 release in the next 2 weeks or so. So yeah, I think it's on a good track.
So with regard to testing, one thing that I would really like to highlight is that the test suites are not, so you cannot really rely that they manage to cover all the really weird corner cases. There have been ample cases where we reorganized some virtual machine stuff within Go Ethereum, and all consensus tests were passing, and then syncing mainnet just failed. So the tests are, it's not a bulletproof thing that if you pass the test, then everything is golden. And from this perspective, I think one of the most important features that we need to support is actually the fuzzers. Because if your client is compatible with the fuzzers, then we can run it a month straight against other clients and see what it finds. And as far as I know, most consensus issues were found by the fuzzers nowadays.
Yeah, should I give it 20-second walkthrough of what's needed?
Oh, you're muted, Martin.
Yeah, I was just wondering if anyone wants a short description of what's needed.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes, please.
Yes, so in order to get fast, there needs to be an executable for your client which takes a state test as input and outputs for every opcode a JSON line object that details the operation that's happening in a format which we call standard JSON output. It's documented on EVM Lab. It contains things like opcode, a number, op name, a string, gas, a couple of more fields, the stack contents and stuff like that. And it ends. It also needs to output the state root after executing the state test. And that's basically it. And it's preferable if the clients spit out JSON line by line, because if they do it in one big JSON chunk afterwards, it will just blow up the poor Python framework that tries to run a lot of tests in parallel.
And which clients are... Oh, go ahead, Martin.
No, so currently it's Geth and Parity. I know that Aleph has kind of those capabilities, at least to spit out the common data format, but as far as I know, it cannot execute on a raw state test. And in order to do that, we can run it in test.eth, but test.eth, as far as I know, spits out a big blob, which doesn't work well if there's 250,000 lines of output.
Okay. That sounds good. Any questions on that from anybody or comments? Okay. So back to
Where is this hosted
ahead.
online? Where is this online? Where can we get it?
So the framework is EVM Lab, Ethereum/EVM Lab. And the actual production fuzzers are running on a server.
Martin, you said that there was documentation for it. Can you maybe drop a link into the all-core devs for the documentation for that format?
Yep, sure.
Okay, great. So it sounds like there's going to be a little more coordination on setting that up, and I think we all heard Peter's point that there is more value to getting the fuzzers up and running across clients than getting the manual test going. Even though the manual tests are also important and they're nearly complete.
No, wait. I didn't say it's more important, but I was saying that so passing the manual test is not yet out of the woods. So the fuzzers can catch a whole lot of things that manual tests cannot or will not.
Got it. Edge cases. Okay. So it sounds like we're kind of mostly agreeing on mid-January for the date. Do we want to wait till next meeting to decide an exact date when we're kind of seeing if there's any more issues that pop up, or do we want to decide it now? I guess what's 2 weeks from now? That's like mid-November or so.
That's Thanksgiving in the U.S. That's a big weekend holiday.
Is that Thanksgiving Day?
It's actually the day after, which is Black Friday, which is a shopping holiday.
That's true.
Shopping holiday. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, let's not be too US centric. Unless anyone has strong objections, I don't think we need to reschedule that call.
Right. I think we'll be fine because most of our team's in Australia.
Okay, yeah, I'll be fine. I think, I don't know if I'll have another monitor to actually do the recording. Maybe Lane can do it.
I should be able to.
Okay, wonderful. We'll coordinate on that. Okay, so it sounds like mid-January is what's going on. I propose that we wait till the next meeting to decide an exact date based on running some more tests and seeing if anything pops up so that we would need to delay it if anything pops up that's major. Anyone think we need to decide on the date today? Or is there like a benefit to deciding today at all?
I guess we can just say mid-January. So it doesn't really make any difference if we decide on a date or not, because if something major comes up, we can always postpone. So
yeah, I would say that let's set a date for today, and we can always kick things out next meeting if something changes. But right now, it seems like we're in a spot to be able to set a date.
Great. How does January 16th sound? That was the one that was suggested.
That's a Wednesday, which kind of is nice because if mining power goes up or down a bit, it's still far away from weekend, so fine by me.
Does it make sense to move that to like the 15th, which is Tuesday, which gives us a little bit more of a buffer for mining power? Or wait, no, mining power goes up, moves things earlier, doesn't it? Never mind. Wednesday sounds great.
Great. Anybody opposed or have any other ideas?
I like it.
Okay, the 16th it is. Yay.
To be confirmed on Black Friday.
To be confirmed on Black Friday, correct.
Be a great US-centric Christmas gift.
Yeah. Looks like we'll get it for 50% off, too.
The only thing that I think we should also highlight that if we're going with the 16th, then ideally all clients should release a stable version with the baked-in block number before Christmas.
I agree.
Yep.
Okay, we can all make sure we do that. I think we can get off this topic unless anyone has any other comments. Okay, good job everyone. We came to a decision. The next thing is item 5, ProgPoW update. Who wants to cover that one? Pavel, maybe?
Well, from my perspective, we have 3 deaths from Parity, from Go Ethereum and myself.
that we're working on implementing the CPU part of the ProgPoW, CPU implementation, let's call it this way, and we kind of have agreement on what the results are. Like we are in the sync, but the spec is not finalized yet, and there was some changes recently to that, and some tweaks and tunes and so on. So we are not directly where the spec is. So this is like one of the issues: is spec is not finalized and it's not also, I guess, properly described at this moment, and it doesn't include any test vectors. So that's the main struggle we have, I think. But besides that, I think we are in good condition on this in this part. Some other related infrastructure updates would be we just proposed. This is by Andrea from ETH miner community. He mostly has written the spec for Ethereum Stratum protocol. That would include data that is needed to properly do a hard fork and to properly support ProgPoW in general. Yeah, that's the second front. And I think that's mostly the updates I have.
Okay, anybody else have commentary?
I just wanted to say that there was actually a talk at DEF CON 4. I think it was in Ultraviolet. I just walked into it accidentally. That was a presentation about ProgPoW, and I remember I sat through it, and they included the saturation numbers. I think the ones that so I was suggesting they would produce. So they actually had saturation numbers in the presentation, and I think they were pretty high. So.
Yes, but I think also that the numbers that they presented during the workshop is also in a Medium post that was published I don't know, a week or two earlier. So I think the numbers can be found publicly there. If anyone has the link, you can put it in all core devs for people to see.
Yeah, the talk was in Ultraviolet. Oh God, a Girl presented, and those videos for DevCon should hopefully be out in the next 2 weeks, depending on if my internet works again. I'm about to give up on my ISP and move to a different one, but the issue was like that the other ISP also sucks, so like my choices are very limited. So if I can get my ISPs all figured out and get my upload speed above 1 megabyte per second, then I can upload the videos. So that'll be good.
So Hudson, if I'm understanding correctly, Prog proof of work is delayed because of your internet connection.
That is exactly right. Let's get
Okay.
CoinDesk to do that article title.
Hudson, if it would be faster, feel free to like FedEx me a pin drive and I can upload it from here.
Okay, yeah. I might get you or someone else to help with that. That'd be great.
Public utility hack is to try going to your library, uploading from there. Sometimes they have a giant pipe.
Okay, yeah.
Or a university. Universities are often open and very fast.
Okay, yeah. I'll have to do that. All right, so it looks like we've gone through ProgPoW and gotten an update on that. The last item was the Goerli testnet, which we've already gone over. And I think, is there other comments on ProgPoW? Were there other comments on the Goerli testnet or anything else?
So I proposed 2 things to discuss. I'm not sure whether you wanted to get to that or you just skipped them.
I just didn't see them. Go ahead and discuss them.
Okay, so one of them was that our APIs, the RPC APIs, ETH_getWork currently returns 3 parameters for ETH hash mining. And we've been approached by a few mining pools that this is problematic because so both parity and geth, when they start mining on a block, periodically they recreate the block even though nothing was mined yet. This might happen because a new uncle arrives, or it might also happen if periodically you just receive a ton more transactions, and if you recreate it, it might actually be more optimal for you, I mean for the miner. And for the miners, it generally helps to know whether this is a new round of work and they should quickly abort mining on the old one, or whether it is still the same round, just an alternative block. And the solution that I think Parity has been shipping for a long time now is to add a fourth parameter, basically just the block number. And this seems to work out fine-ish. I mean, I can imagine a few corner cases, but generally it's fine and it's an easy enough solution. And we also wanted to add that to Geth. So of course we can add it, and we added it, but since there are actually already two clients on the network which work according to this, and it's generally useful for everybody, I thought it would be, might as well just update the spec, JSON RPC spec, so that it actually requires returning a fourth parameter.
When you say the spec, do you mean the in progress EAP or the wiki spec?
No, the wiki. So the wiki RPC thing is just adding 2 more lines to the wiki page. The reason I wanted to bring it up because it's a standards document, the API spec. So if you want to change it, it would be nice to have an agreement on it.
No objection from me. I think it would be good to make sure that that change does get propagated to the in-flight EAP for speccing the JSON RPC APIs.
Okay, I'm not really sure which EAP that is or what the process is on it, but if you can ping me the EAP number, I can just write a comment.
I'll link it in chat, and yeah, I'm literally talking about making sure that there's a comment on there to indicate that it needs to get updated. That's all.
Yeah, okay, I can do that if you link it. So anyway, that was one of the easy issues, and the other one is that we've been having discussions at DEF CON about setting up a few processes within Ethereum, and essentially, for example, we have absolutely no process on how we are doing forks. So it's kind of these ad hoc things where everybody we just talk on chat and try to do something meaningful and then hope nothing blows up, which didn't really happen during Ropsten. And then the idea was that it would actually be nice to try to somehow define a few processes around important repeatable actions. For example, deploying a hard fork. And we discussed it at DEF CON, and I've written up a small document. I also pasted it on the CoreDevs GitHub issue. So it's a proposal that I would like to, it would be nice to have this playbook, so to say, that, okay, if we're doing a hard fork, how do we go about it? And in my suggestion, it's a proof of concept again, I kind of highlighted that, for example, it would be nice to first do a simple hard fork on a private network, so to say, that clients set up between each other, because then we can test these transitions and catch obvious errors, block depth dependent errors without messing with everybody. And even afterwards, if we decide that we are going forward with forking a testnet, Lane had this brilliant idea at DEF CON that instead of doing a live fork of a testnet, we can do a shadow fork, whereby we set up a few forking clients that just fork away whilst still leaving the real testnet on its original path. And this allows testing quite a few nifty things. For example, testing whether clients can cleanly separate from the other network, or if there's a stronger network going, then all hell doesn't break loose. And there are lots of these scenarios that I described in this document. So my request is just maybe have a read at this document, figure out whether different or other clients or ecosystem participants would be on board in doing such a document and trying to, for example, have hard fork follow this playbook. And if there is traction, then we can possibly work out all the kinks and make it expand it to whatever detail we need. And one more thing that people were quite a few people asked me why there's a need to do a separate process thing instead of just filing an EIP. And I don't know, this is again debatable. Let's get the document done first, and then we can see whether it actually fits into an EIP or not. My initial idea or initial reasoning is that an EIP is more like a specification, I mean, kind of functionality spec, but it doesn't really tell you how to do it. Whereas these process documents, the goal would be to have a step-by-step checklist where you can just go through and just tick the boxes that, hey, did Go Ethereum, I don't know, report to the status page? No, then we're waiting until they report. Then these kinds of boring stuff that aren't really specifications, rather just mundane tasks.
Peter,
Question: if we want to try to use this kind of workflow, wouldn't it be good to have some kind of appointed fork director or whatever, fork manager?
Well, the point is that, so that's actually part of the consensus and should be part of this whole process document, that if we decide that the hard fork needs to have a hard fork coordinator, and in my opinion it should have one, then probably we can also add that to the doc, that yes, first step 0 is to appoint somebody who's willing to coordinate the entire thing.
I totally agree with that.
The only idea is that I think it's if we kind of agree in advance to some document on how hard forks are going, everything can go much smoother because everyone's on the same page and everyone knows that, okay, then in 2 weeks we need to launch a private network, and in 4 weeks we need to do a shadow fork of, I don't know, Ropsten. And then you have a clear timeline and you have clear steps. Whereas currently it was just, hey, okay, let's select this block number, and then eventually, hopefully, everybody will do a release and hope for the best. So that apparently didn't work out.
We discussed a lot of these ideas at the, I guess the ETH 2.0 gathering, it was called, in Prague. And there's definitely a lot of support. There seemed to be consensus that the coordinator role makes a lot of sense. So I just wanted to add my voice, or I guess the voice of all the people who were part of that conversation. Of course, figuring out who that person should be and the process by which they're chosen and whether it's one person or a group, et cetera, is complicated. And I don't think we should take up too much more time on this call, but I think it's a great idea. And Peter, I think that, checklists, if you look at other professional engineering or, fields like medicine, or I guess the canonical example here is like the pilot's checklist in aviation, I think it's a fantastic idea. And I love the idea of having a meta conversation, not around this particular hard fork, but around sort of a platonic hard fork, right? What that should look like, what the steps should be, the roles, et cetera. And one final thought, which is, we've discussed many times now splitting already the ERCs out of the EIP repository, which I personally think is a good idea. I personally think that EEPs should be separate as well.
One possible way for us to fill this role would be for companies in the space who have existing knowledgeable project managers on staff to donate one of them at the time that we are entering into hard fork range. So if there's companies out there who think that they've got somebody who would be good at this and would be willing to donate to the public good, that might be a good way to do that.
So I don't really understand this line of thought with the project manager thing and somebody being good at it, because I guess the whole point would be to create a document where everybody can be as dumb as it gets and still be able to tell whether you're following through the thing or not. So that's the whole point, that you don't want smart people who make decisions. You want a document that it just tells you what to do, and if you follow it to the letter, then it will just work out fine.
Sorry, I'm not suggesting somebody who's a decision maker exactly. This is coordination. So somebody who's keeping track of whether we've done the things, making sure that it's clear what comes next, all of those things. But that's it. Just helping all of us who are busy doing things that sometimes we don't pay attention to the process. It's nice to have somebody to help hold a hand every once in a while.
I publicly asked if anyone had that set of experience and wanted to contribute at one of the ETH Magicians events in Prague, and I had 4 or 5 people, I think, reach out subsequently and say they'd be interested in helping. A number of them said they'd be interested in volunteering their time. Hudson and maybe Piper, it might be good for us to set up a call with some of those people, or at least discuss amongst ourselves offline and see if we wouldn't want to accept some of that help.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'd love to do that.
Cool. I'll reach out offline about that. Anyone else who wants to be part of that conversation, just let me know.
Yeah, and what is the acronym again, Peter? Is it EEA?
Yeah, I just called it. I called the repository EEE. It's just Ethereum engineering effort, and documents I just call them Ethereum engineering processes.
Okay,
I mean,
Triple E.
they're just names, but you can. I found EEE to be a fancy name. I liked it, but
I like Triple E too, personally. Okay, so we kind of discussed a few different things at once here. Let's go over the first one real quick. We have about 15 minutes left or so. So updating the eth-get work RPC API on the wiki. Did everyone kind of agree on that? I kind of missed that part of the discussion.
Yeah, I think the main issue here is that in the past, that wiki has been completely ad hoc, edited by anyone. I think it's still publicly editable by anyone. So I think it's more, it's following sort of due process to notify, hey, I think this should be changed on the wiki, and then change it once there's agreement. So I think it's more, we're now starting to do that. It doesn't really fit in within the EIP framework, but I still think it's something we should do, and I think Peter's doing it the right way. But I think that it's not a big issue, like it's not a big change or anything. So, and from Perry's point of view, we already implemented. So
So from my point of view, this is very useful information. And probably so it affects how we're going to do a hard fork, if any, to different proof of work algorithm, and also ProgPoW takes the block number as an input to the hash function. So this is almost requirement for that. And also block number is much more useful than it's called seed hash. It's pretty dumb to have it there. So even more aggressive approach to that would be replace the seed hash with block number. But that probably can cause more backward compatibility issues. So I fully support this change.
Great. Sounds like we're all good then. And then I think everyone was kind of giving positive vibes behind the Triple E. So let's go ahead and try that. I don't see why not. Or worst case, we abandon it if it's not working, and then we'll get with Lane and Piper and others about the project manager position. I know there were some other people who approached me via email and in person at DevCon, so I have some names as well. And then was it what? Did I miss anything, Peter?
Nope.
Okay. Any other stuff? Lane, you mentioned potentially separating the ERCs from the EIPs. Did you want to kind of go over that a little bit, or is that for a different day?
Yeah, this was
talk about that on this call. We only have like 10 minutes left, and that's a big thing, or at least that's my opinion.
If you want to give a quick summary, Lane, then yeah, let's just do that.
Yeah, I'm not super keen to go into great depth on this. I don't know if this is the right moment or the right forum to talk about this, but there was a conversation about this. I can't remember exactly with whom or exactly where at DevCon. But I mean, the idea is like separating consensus critics, like stuff that falls within consensus from stuff that falls outside of consensus. It's not at all clear to me that those should be the same process, that the same people should be involved, et cetera. And I think that they all live in the same GitHub repository for historical reasons, but I would be for separating the two of them. That's my thought.
Cool. So we'll have that on in a future call potentially, or if it's not the right form, maybe magicians, and we can decide from there with the EIP editors what we want to do. That sounds good. Any other topics or comments or anything like that? Awesome. We will meet again in 2 weeks on Black Friday. Everyone get some good deals out there. If you're in the US, if you're not, then you're missing out on a wonderful United States made holiday for consumers. All right. I'll talk to everyone later. Everyone have a great day or night. Bye.
Thanks, Hudson.
You
Bye.
too. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Singles Day on the 11th.